Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we're going to recap all of the things about ADCC and CJI that we didn't recap the last week on our live show. We are now back in the studio. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better. We've got everything done. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, joined with our co-host,
Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Actually, not pretty good. I've been horrendously sick the entire week coming back from ADCC. And this is like the first day that I'm actually like a human since returning.
That's great.
It was not great. It was a rough week, but did have some time to put together basically a bunch of notes on all the stuff that we didn't get a chance to talk about during our live show. So this week we're going to talk about basically all of like the other matches of the tournament that aren't just the finals matches, aren't just like those big moments that we talked about live in Vegas last week. And then we're also going to record next week's show, kind of pull behind the curtain, preview of Mikey Musumeci and Kate Rotolo on 1FC, which is happening 2 weeks from now. So we're recording it because I'm out next week. And then we are also previewing Polaris next week because that's a great card and that should be fun. We're going to do that next week. So look for those shows next week. But this week is basically just finishing up our recap of talking about those big moments at ADCC and CJI that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week. So we're back. We're here. If you are finding us from the ADCC and CJI coverage, how you doing? We got the Grappling Rewind. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at grappling_rewind. We are the longest running independent jiu-jitsu and professional grappling show around. We've been doing this for a long time, and we every week break down and recap the biggest events in professional grappling, kind of with a focus on the paid events and the world events, but also some forays into some other stuff throughout the community. So if you're just finding us, happy to have you, and this is what we do. So, Miranda, where do you want to start? We don't have a ton of news this week. We have a bunch of post-ADCC news of like, here's this injury. Like we know Margalu's shoulder needs surgery. We know Nicky Ryan's knee needs surgery. We know, who else?
Oh, there was another one. Gordon Ryan blew out his LCL.
Okay. Was it actually LCL?
I think it was LCL.
Gordon Ryan
he said that.
has been like the nicest dude.
He has. It's been
which
creepy.
Kind of makes us concerned, like something like really, because he looked really sick.
Beside the whole him and Craig going back and forth. That's
him and Craig though.
But yeah.
So every time Gordon wins ADCC, we usually get like a week of really nice guy Gordon. But this time we've got like almost 2 weeks of it, and it's like that's
it's a little disconcerting.
Which is it's a nice breath of fresh air, honestly.
Was it Isaac Michel that was also injured? I don't know. I kept on seeing all these posts about people having injuries before the tournament.
Right.
Oh no, it was before the tournament, and it was like Luke Rockhold screwed up his back before the tournament, couldn't walk, and so that was one of the things they said going into. Like there was a couple guys that went into the tournament hurt.
Everyone, honestly, a lot of guys go into the tournament and the
other thing is you're making $10,000 no matter what happens
for CJI. Yeah.
Like, do you think you're really gonna win against Nikki Rodriguez? Probably not.
Or Victor Hugo.
So like, fuck it. You're gonna go. You're gonna see what happens.
Right.
I mean, it sucks that you lose it against somebody that you probably shouldn't lose to, but
right.
It is what it is.
One thing I love about every ADCC cycle, or in this term CJI and ADCC, is much like in like every other professional sport, the week after we find out what everyone had going into it. So it's like whenever you have like the Super Bowl, or like my favorite is NHL hockey, is you find out like the day after the Stanley Cup, like all of these guys have surgery. You're like, oh yeah, he broke his leg.
Yeah. Like
game 3. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He broke his leg?
And Lucas Barbosa, he dislocated his shoulder 5 weeks prior. And that was why, remember he pulled out to beat AJ Stars?
Pulled out. Yeah, I remember that.
He dislocated his shoulder.
Okay.
Like 5 weeks prior.
So it always makes me laugh, like the week after the ADCC show we do, where it's like, hey, here's the injury report. Yeah. And it's just like, blown knee, new ligaments, surgery, blew your shoulder out. So all the things that guys like were willing to compete with, or like, I'm just going to push through, man. It's the World Championships, the ADCC. We're just going to see how far. Because again, it's a 2-year tournament for ADCC. And it's hard to get back into that tournament. Like, it's not guaranteed that you'll ever make it to ADCC again. And CJI going to this one, it's not guaranteed that they're ever going to run one of those again. Like before Craig announced it at the end of the show, it's like we were like, this is going to be a one and done event. Not many people are willing to lose $3 million more than once.
Yeah.
So, people go in and come out with injuries. It is always interesting to find out what those actual injuries are. I think the only big kind of dropout we had was Mason Fowler.
Yeah.
He was injured so bad. He was like, for $10,001, I'm not going to do it. So, let's see. What other news
We
do
also
we have?
had our friend
Oh, yeah, Anderson.
Anderson.
Fredetta.
Fredetta. Or no, not Fredetta. Is his last name Fredetta?
His last name's Fredetta.
Oh, is it?
Fredetta.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember Anderson.
Anderson. The first time we had to translate his name on BJJ Stars, Miranda pulled it up. We were watching it at the house
Yeah,
here.
on Google, and it went Anderson.
It said it really fancy.
Yeah.
But he just popped for dope for weed or something.
Weed.
Which is such a weird one they still test for in IBJJF and WADA. But he now it's suspended for, he got a title strip.
3 months, I think.
Yeah.
From PANS.
Which is such a weird one.
It's a very weird one, but I don't think it strips him from the Brazilian tournaments. I think it's just the American tournaments, because remember Micah could still do the Brazilios and everything.
They're only regulated under WADA in the U.S. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that. We learned that. I was like, why can you do that? I was like,
Yeah, because he did the
tournaments.
Brazilian tournaments, so he
Yeah,
can still
that
do
was
the
funny.
Brazilian tournaments. He just can't do the American tournaments for a little bit.
Which is annoying, because he's been a really fun guy to watch, and we've seen him put on some really impressive and fun performances recently. So,
Yeah.
but he'll be back in a couple of months. So it just, again, sucks to watch athletes kind of have their time taken away for recreational drugs.
Yeah.
I think. Again, not my hill to die on. Those are the rules. We'll
Yeah,
see him.
I
We'll
mean,
see him again soon.
We all know a bunch of people who smoke a ton of weed before they
Most-
compete.
Most jiu-jitsu, a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of people in the sport we do, that is a frequent occurrence. But
Yeah.
whatever. Let's talk about Miranda. Do we have any other news? Oh yeah, this week Tomoyoshi Hashimoto had a grappling match on ONE FC, ONE Championship. I think they're lining him up to face Mikey, which would be a really fun rematch they had back at the Worlds a couple years ago. But it was on a fight night for ONE. It was on one of the Bangkok cards.
Yeah, sometimes you have to pay attention to those cards because they have random grappling matches on them.
Yeah, I always forget that, because usually they only had grappling matches for a long time on ONE Championship on the tentpole events.
Yeah.
This one was on one of the Thai fight cards, which was that's weird. I haven't seen them do that before. So he won that.
Zapatero had a qualifier over the weekend that Gianni Grippo won.
Yeah, he's now into the $100,000 qualifier that they are running. I think he is the first name that we know in that tournament.
No, DeAndre Corvée.
Okay, so both those guys are in that.
Yeah.
That should be fun. Again, Johnny's fun to watch. DeAndre's fun to watch.
His finals match was against Jordan Holly. Jordan Holy, right? Not Holly.
I think it's
Holy.
Holy,
Yeah. Which was funny because I think he hit him with the same head and arm choke that he hit him at
Trials.
No. Well, probably Trials too, but I watched it live at
Emerald City?
No, the one in Texas.
Who's number one?
No, the one
Main character?
Main character. Because they went against each
They've
other.
gone against each other a couple of times
a
at this
bazillion
point.
times, yeah.
And Gianni kind of has his number pretty well at this point.
Gianni basically does the same exact thing to him almost every time. Yeah.
And it works against the guy. Why would we not going to change the
Well,
formula up?
if you watch Gianni's IBJJF performances, it's what he does to everyone. So it's not anything new. He kind of passes your guard and
Head and arm.
Head and arm.
Head and arm.
Yeah.
So, I have other news than that. Let's move into the fun stuff. So we talked a little bit about the $1 million bet match between Nick Rodriguez and Gordon Ryan. Based on Gordon's health and that he hasn't responded to that at all, I think that's we kind of knew it was a long shot anyway. But I don't think there's any that's going to happen.
Gordon did put out this big post about all of his sicknesses over the last year.
Yeah.
Which was dude, you're just dying.
We've known.
Admit to the fact that you're dead.
He might be he is oddly sick for a guy of his age.
Yeah.
It is concerning, but I don't think there's any shot in hell that we see the Nick
Both
Rodriguez
him and his
match.
brother are not very
Yeah, I have a note here about
individuals.
Nicky Ryan as well, because he's super injured now, and another knee blown out.
Yeah.
And then he had a performance against Tackett at CJI.
Yeah.
That was really tough for
Yes.
him. There was not a good showing for him that he
It was
historically
tough to watch. It was very tough to watch.
He kind of just didn't have anything for Tackett.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those benchmarking performances of ooh, the young guy, you are no longer the youngest guy in this match now, and this is now the new generation of young prospect guy. And this is ooh, it's not a great look. But again, he has not had a camp without a significant injury since he was a kid. I think the last camp that he hasn't had some sort of injury with when he's probably 14 or 15.
Probably.
And even in the ADCC camps then, when he was the youngest competitor to go to ADCC, I think there was some injury then that he had going into the Finland ADCC. So it's like the guy's just been historically injured his entire adult life and even child. Like,
yeah.
It's rough. So the bet mat doesn't happen with Nick Rodriguez versus Gordon Ryan because of Gordon's sickness. It's not something I'm going to rule out forever. Again, your health can kind of drastically shift, but with where Gordon's at right now, I don't think he has any interest in booking that match. There's even a discussion like if he's even going to take on Kynan in 2026.
Yeah.
Like that match.
He doesn't really have to.
No.
Because he's ahead in medals right now from everybody, so he's not going to,
Mm-hmm. Oh, speaking of ADCC, I think it was really funny that there was an interview that Giancarlo did, and he was like, oh yeah, I know Salo has 2 of them at 88. He learns like in the interview that he is the only person to back-to-back it at 88. And it was, you see his face like, oh, that's kind of cool. And you see him like just learn that. I was like, that's really cool that like you just knew that one guy had 2.
Yeah.
All you cared about was 2. You didn't realize that there had never been a back-to-back.
Yeah.
You were the first back-to-back. That was kind of cool to see. Let's see what else. What other kind of other cool moments did we have there that we didn't kind of go over last week? I think that's all the interview stuff that's come out this last week. Let's talk about some of the fun matches that we didn't cover and the fun moments that we didn't cover. First of all, I want to run through. We now have fastest subs for the tournament. Owen Jones versus Garbeck, 36 seconds. Big Dan versus Josh Saunders, 44 seconds. And Oliver Taza versus Davi Ramos, 53 seconds. Also, talk to Owen Jones a little bit. It is a Ravens rash guard.
Oh, so
it is a Ray Lewis. Like, so if you didn't know, Owen Jones is a guy from the UK. And during the entire ADCC tournament, he had a bright purple, which is our football team here locally in Baltimore, the area that I'm based out of. And Miranda's kind of adjacent to.
Sort of adjacent to,
Big 52, which is Ray Lewis's number, which is a big, huge Baltimore football player all through the 2000s, multiple Super Bowls, big tournaments, big events for the city, the Baltimore city.
Didn't you used to have his couch?
I had Ray Rice's couch.
Oh, okay.
Different ball player.
Wrong Ray.
And Ray Lewis, and it was like, but Ray Lewis is a big sports figure, and it's odd because Owen Jones is a UK younger, like wouldn't really have probably been, watching much. I'm not sure how much American football he would have been watching. Like when Ray Lewis has been retired for 6 or 7 years, I think at least now.
I think so.
And the F52, and it was in fact a Ravens football like reference like kit.
That's so
and
weird.
I have a bunch of guys at the gym that are very excited to see if like that comes out, like we're gonna get Ray Lewis like Owen Jones kit, which was kind of cool. That's
weird.
Yeah, it was kind of, apparently we did some digging, and the Ravens are actually kind of a popular team internationally, more so than a lot of the other football teams. And I thought that was just really a funny like coincidence.
Well,
of,
don't
like,
they do games over there, right?
They do occasionally. I think the last time they did was London was like a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
it wasn't like, it's not a frequent thing. It's 1 or 2 games a year. I think the Ravens have only been over there maybe once or twice, but I'm not sure. I don't really follow football anymore, but I did think it was really funny, and we did confirm with Owen Jones that it is in fact a Baltimore Ravens Ray Lewis.
I'll ask somebody that is into ball sports about that kind of stuff because I don't know either.
It was neat, and he did get the fastest sub versus Garberg in his second round of the 66 kilogram division. That's kind of cool. Again, I like that. I like when 66 guys can take some like title away.
Yeah.
I think Adele had the fastest women's submission at like 1:06.
Yeah.
In one of her matches, I forget, may have been versus Jasmine Rocha. I think was the armbar. I think that was the fastest women's sub.
It's either that one or against Bia. Because that was a fast one.
I think it was like 3 minutes, but I could have been one of. I think Adele has the fastest sub for the women.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Me. Yeah.
It was a cool little moment. Let's talk about other cool subs of the tournament. Pathos Nibar over Ethan. It was wild. It was cool. It sucked to see Ethan get taken out again in the tournament. He did make it further in this tournament than he has made it before, which is great. But man, the way that Pato set up this knee bar, we talked about it a little bit on last week's show, but I think I've gone back and rewatched it again, and I really appreciated just how he kept Ethan, how Pato was able to keep Ethan moving through the whole series and like work the wrestle up and then capitalize and run back into and under the knee bar in transition for like Ethan defending the sequence for like the sweeping sequence and then back into the knee bar. It was like such a masterful way to kind of, without Ethan really being not aware that the knee bar is there, but like Ethan wasn't in the process of defending the knee bar because the knee bar is like a thing that's available there, but almost no one will ever go for it in that sequence. And Pato was good enough to go, cool, I'm actually going to go for this sequence now and actually going to go for the knee bar. And he hits it, and it was really cool. It was a fun match. I like both these guys. We've watched Ethan for, I think since Ethan was a purple belt, technically. I've been following Ethan. He was like the world's longest competitive brown belt, the only brown belt with the BJJ Heroes page for years until a bunch of prodigies came into Nogi, and BJJ Heroes was like, okay, occasionally we've got to give some guys some pages that are brown belts and purple belts because they're at the world stage level at these belts. But Ethan was the first guy, and then Pato would go on to be in the finals with Baby Shark, the rematch, and then Baby Shark was able to finish him with a head and arm. And Baby Shark did a really cool interview after talking about how he kind of game planned for the match and like his thought process going into it. And he goes, yeah, I knew Pato was going to go for my legs again because he had done that before, and I knew that later in the match I would need to push him, and then when I had an opportunity I would need to pass. And it was just cool to hear him kind of like talk through like the game planning thing of like, yeah, you're going against a guy that has a recent win on you, but kind of by injury, but also he was sort of beating Baby Shark up until that injury, until that, the finish there. And it was cool to hear Baby Shark kind of think about that and then game plan again for how he was going to deal with what Pato was bringing to the table in that finals match and go, cool, here's how I have to like deal with beating him.
Do you think it's also kind of weird that both of them have animal nicknames?
It's definitely, it's like,
it's like the smaller guys get the animal nicknames.
A little bit, yeah. Like a lot of the big guys get like disparaging,
like the Buchecha
and Tree Stomp and like or like Lateran, like they all get like the like. There's not a nice Portuguese nickname.
The funny, but
a lot of the little guys get like animal names.
Yeah,
like Squirrel and this. It's just kind of like very funny. It's like, big guys give you big dumb nicknames.
So you had Baby Shark versus the duck.
The duck.
Yeah.
Pato. That was fun. Anything else more on that on the last weekends?
Nope.
We had a fun one in Charles Negromante versus Isaac Michel. Isaac Michel, up until this finish, was I think pretty clearly winning this match.
Yeah.
And then Negromante, the finish is just great. Goes underneath, and then he basically hits a standing knee, and not basically, he hits a standing, when Isaac Michel is still standing, a knee bar from the bottom, which is not a knee bar you see very frequently at all. You know who uses this a ton? Elizabeth Clay uses this.
I was about to say. She did, but she did it like color belts, right?
Yeah, she used to get DQ for it all the time because it's a great sweep. You can do it. You can do a knee bar sweep off of this, and it's Negromante sets it up a little bit differently than you would set up a knee bar sweep. And basically, with the knee bar sweep, and especially the way that Clay does it, I think for years, Clay was the best person in the modern game that was using this. You environed them, and then you kind of buck into their knee, and either they can do one of two things. They can tap standing, which is what Isaac is forced to do here because Negromante is strong and like really like arching into it. But a lot of times what people will do is you can kind of fall. Yeah. And as you're falling, a lot of times it allows you to alleviate and turn your knee and eliminate some of the force. And so you have to end up sweeping yourself and taking the sweep there. But in the case of a lot of times Elizabeth Clay, and in the case of Charles Negromante here, you can finish it standing. Yeah. And but it was just a really neat knee bar that we don't see used a lot. And honestly, we don't see used a lot in the men's divisions. And so it was kind of cool to see a match, like a come from behind victory. I also didn't realize that Isaac Michel was like 26.
Oh, really?
I didn't realize he was that young. He's been around for a while, and we've been talking about him for years.
I don't know how old anybody is, really, truthfully. Yeah. Unless you're like at one like end or the other, where you're like 19.
Unless you're like Cyborg or like Kolabate.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, those guys are
if you're at one end or the other end, that's about all I know. Mm-hmm.
Like Cade Rotolo and Ty Rotolo being 21. You're like, okay, I remember that.
And then sometimes I know them because they do like master brackets. And then I'm like, oh.
Oh, we see them in Masters. Like Meows. Like when we first started seeing the Meows coming to Masters, it was like, oh my God, they're already done. That's crazy. Like Lucas Pinheiro entered a Masters division, and I went, fuck, I thought I was away from you now.
Oh, Demetrius Johnson's doing Master Worlds this weekend.
Hey, he's a black belt now.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Imagine getting Demetrius Johnson your first round.
I think he does.
In the gi.
I think he's not light, what's light feather?
Light feather.
Light feather.
Yeah, light feather.
I think.
And then, what's he, 45? Oh, yeah, light feather.
I think
is he Master? Feather. What I meant to say is he Masters 2?
He's Master 2. That's what he was doing before at brown belt.
Yeah, when he was killing everyone at brown
Yeah.
belt. And we were like, what are you doing, Mighty Mouse? Come on,
Yeah.
this is not fair.
Killing like a 300-pound man.
Yeah. So that was a fun knee bar. Let's talk about another footlock, not on ADCC, but on CJI. We talked about it again a little bit last week, but I've had a chance to watch more of this this finish. It was the kind of upset win of Lucas Kennard, the heel hook he had over Victor Hugo. And I think we talked about this a little bit, like off the air. And you kind of had an interesting take that was like, Hugo just didn't seem like he was super ready for it yet, like the speed yet.
Yeah, I don't think he was warmed up yet, truthfully.
Yeah.
I that was one of those, I don't think he expected it to be hit on him as fast as it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was still warming up, and then all of a sudden, like, he was stuck in a position where, like, he didn't really know how to get out of it.
Yeah. Well,
And it was almost like a panic.
It looked like the weird thing was, it looked like he was out of it.
Yeah.
Like in the replay we're seeing, it's like, I keep looking at Hugo's knee. And again, I'm not in the sub, and we can talk about another sub that wasn't like fully in, that totally worked. The heel hook of Elijah Dorsey that PJ Barch got. It's like, yeah, man, you don't necessarily need full control of the knee or whatever.
Well, you also don't know what people's bodies are looking like going into things.
Yeah. Did he have a knee injury? Or is it like, hey, man, it felt like it caught, and you feel your ligament kind of twist, even if it's not, or your knee looks like it's clear, it's not actually. Like I've seen over the years, we've seen plenty of people have blown knees. With like, well, his knee was clear. It's like, yeah, man, it wasn't clear enough.
Yeah.
Like,
and sometimes, I mean, you don't know. You don't know. Sometimes maybe he had a late flight because his flight got delayed, and then he didn't warm up as well as he should have, or for whatever reason he didn't, and
who
they
knows
come in and
all the X factors going in,
and your legs are tighter than you thought they were, and next thing you know, somebody's ripping something on you, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah,
and,
we've all traveled and had like you get there and you're like, ooh, I'm like, wait, the first like 4 days you're like, I'm super stiff, and yeah.
Normally mine's my neck. I'm like, oh, my neck doesn't move today.
Yeah, somebody darces you and you're like, why can't I move my... Oh, right. I'm like not nearly as flexible. And also in Vegas, the elevation.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to kind of watch this in replay because it looks like Hugo's knee has cleared and is out of Lucas Kennard's heel hook. And that was the thing that I'm still like... I want to get it here and I haven't found one yet. Victor Hugo kind of talking about it because in the finish, it looks like he's clear. And Hugo is for as far as the big guys go, a very good leg locker. Like he has world titles in Nogi, over Cyborg and other people like via leg lock. Like
he's also a bendy guy.
Yeah, he's flexible. He's bendy. He's a good guard player. He's not a guy we see get leg locked very frequently at all. And people will go into his legs, frequently. We've seen guys do it recently. Big Dan did it. We saw Nicky Rod do it. Like. It's something people will go for because you can't pass his guard. And so at the end of a match, frequently we see guys jump for his legs and him deal with it very well. It was kind of such a weird sequence to watch Lucas Kennard kind of get it, and then it was done. And so I'm kind of curious to see what Victor Hugo kind of says about it.
He's not making any, he's not making any excuses, which is great. He's not blaming it on anything, so
not that I expected. Hugo's pretty upfront with
but
that.
if there was something weird about it, or like
guys will be on like not excuses, just honesty of like, yeah, man, I had a bad, like my knee's bad or whatever. It was super odd where it's just like, oh yeah, you just got him. And again, sometimes guys just punch up. Sometimes Tim Spriggs just heel hooks Duarte, and you're like, that's a punch up. Is it repeatable? I don't know, but I'm super happy that put Kennard on the map, and I'm super happy that he got a sub bonus for it because, again, Victor Hugo was the 1 seed going into that. I think it's really cool that he gets rewarded for that. Let's talk about... so the Ty Rotolo injury. Do you know the extent of the injury now?
I don't think they said anything.
I thought, was it a sprain or was it a tear? I thought it was a knee, right? His knee is jacked up now. And... I think he got hurt in the Jason Nolf match because I think he beats Nolf and then he loses to Levi Jones Leary.
Yeah.
He footlocks him, right? Levi Jones Leary footlocks him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that we saw him like limping around. We saw him actually on backstage with crutches later in that day and the next day. I am curious.
I do not know.
Okay. I'm curious how that will affect his run at 1 because apparently both of Rotolo brothers got permission from Chatri, the CEO of One Championship, to do CJI, which is cool because that's not always the case. But now as the champion, he's injured. Again, they don't really have a division around him. There weren't a lot of guys like knocking on the door as far as like a divisional ranking or structure to do that at 85 at 1, which is where Ty has his title. And Cade's going to defend it. Or Cade and
says
Mikey.
knee injury in round 1.
Yeah, versus Jason Nolf.
No, in round 1 of his second match. It says, I believe
right.
my
He
brother...
heard it versus Levi.
Yeah.
Okay. I got that wrong.
Which wouldn't surprise me because Levi has such an intricate game that they play a more kind of loose, like in your face kind of thing, that if you have somebody who's really intricate and they can kind of lock into something and you're trying to like spaz out, not that they spaz, they like control spaz out. That's,
but I know what you mean.
but
Like
you
try
try
pull
to
out
do,
aggressively from something.
Then you can tweak things.
Yeah, especially if you're playing with a world championship level
Yeah.
guy that like has a little bit more of a bite than your average
Yeah.
guy, or even your
Because
average
both
elite
of those,
guy.
because both of them kind of, they aggressively get out of things. Let's say it that way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they're not. It's not the put your hand here and put it. It's
Yeah,
like, hey
it's-
man,
yeah.
rip or rip,
It's,
baby.
yeah, it's like I'm gonna backflip out of this.
Lawnmower escape, and
Yeah.
they're phenomenal escapes, and they're great
Yeah.
at the highest levels. They're phenomenal, and a lot of times you can't give the world championship level people and the elite people that little extra time because
Yeah, to
they're
like-
gonna
yeah.
they're gonna break something in half. So it's a very effective way at the top level to do that. But sometimes when you got a guy like Levi Jones-Leary, maybe he has a little bit more of a bite than guys that are not elite.
Yeah.
And he can break your shit a little bit
Yeah.
as you're pulling out of that. We've all seen it at lower levels. It's not an uncommon thing at a lower level, like
No.
a blue belt
No.
suddenly thinks they can get out of
And we
something
all,
and they fuck
yeah,
their shit up.
and we've all done that. Like I
Mhm.
did it. I did it at blue belt. I had a girl on my arm, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna throw this little girl off my arm, and I blew out
It
my
was a
elbow.
toe hold at white belt.
Yeah, it was
I
a
got-
toe hold for you. I
I
blew out my elbow.
It was,
and
I'm
I
going to get out of
won the
this.
match.
And then I pulled, and then the guy was like, no. And then so in my blew up promotion, there's a picture of me, my foot's all wrapped up.
Dude, have you? Okay, I was about to say, did you get hurt in every promotion you've ever had?
No, it was before promotion.
Okay.
Let's see.
Because you got
Hey, black belt, I was fine.
black belt.
Black belt was a great
There were
promotion.
no rolls. That's
There
why.
was no rules. It was a fine promotion. Didn't get hurt.
Because we knew
I
not
think-
to hurt you in your black belt
I was
promotion.
super hungover for that. I didn't know I was getting blue belt. I was
Okay.
super hungover for that promotion. Purple belt, I got my sternum cracked. Brown belt, something else happened. And then black belt, no, that's good. Yeah, so every promotion, pretty much every promotion.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. So Ty's injured. I hope that he is not super injured and back soon, because he can defend his title at 1FC. That's part of kind of the Levi Jones-Leary leg locking everyone thought process that we had. We knew Levi was good.
I think Levi's just going to get better and better because every time
Yeah.
I see him, he's getting better. His game, I mean, it might not be the game that a lot of people want to see. Might not be the most exciting game.
That's
in
a
the
real
world,
problem, though.
But let me tell you, he knows how to do it. So you can't pass. If you can't pass, you can't do anything about it.
I can't
you
wait
know?
next week to talk about Cade versus Mikey, because
Yeah.
you brought it up on the pre-show.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many parallels
Yeah.
in the Musumeci style and the Levi Jones-Leary style,
Yeah.
and like I cannot wait next week to break that. To like spend most of the show probably breaking that down of like, hey, here's stylistically how it's going to match
Yeah.
up and why it might not be the results you expect.
Yeah.
But the time with Lachlan,
It also depends. Is it in a cage?
I don't think it's in a ring. I think it's a cage.
Okay, let me see if that's been.
But
Okay.
the time with Lachlan that Levi Jones-Leary spent for the last year, like, showed up. Leg lock Roberto, leg lock Ty, almost leg locked.
So I read a bunch of online arguments over Levi Jones-Leary and his guard and where his guard came from.
You've been on Reddit, I see?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's from Unity. It's allegedly from Morello
Yeah.
and Unity.
Yeah. He spent like 8 years there,
Yeah.
all through the
But I
belts,
mean
all through belts.
the foot lock and those transitions are relatively, a newer thing. But a lot of his guard game that a lot of people are trying to say is a Lachlan thing is actually not a Lachlan
No.
thing. It's a
Go back,
Unity thing.
Go back and watch him in 2019 or 2018 at the
Well,
Spider
but we always
Championship.
we always saw him in the gi, so it was always different because he was always boloing everybody and like.
Yeah, but I mean, the
Yeah.
guard he plays is still really, really similar to the one he played.
Oh, yeah.
And look at again that Spider. I always pull back that Spider tournament because it was such a big moment in his career. Because he won $100,000 at that tournament, and it was the one that him and Mergali won with like the masks at the end. That was really cool.
Yeah.
That's the game he's always played. And so it's funny to see people kind of attributing that to Lachlan. I think that's probably a recency bias.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like remember watching Levi Jones-Leary 6 and 7 years ago. I mean, I remember even watching him prior to starting the show, and like he was known for his game has looked pretty much the same in the color belts up into the black belt and beyond there.
I don't know what it is. I don't know how to tell if it's going to be in a anyway.
It's usually for one championship. It's usually in a cage.
It was the last one was in a ring.
You're right, and I say that,
and that's where it goes back and forth.
I'm thinking
And
like Danielle Kelly was in a ring.
And I don't know the difference, but when you saw it, because it's in Colorado, and last time it was in Colorado, you were there.
It was a cage.
Then we'll just go with that.
It's in Colorado? Oh, this one is in Colorado.
It's in Colorado.
Right. Okay, yeah. So I'm assuming it is a cage.
Anyway.
But again, they also got the down knee rule in Colorado, and they got some other rules like done for their scoring.
Yeah.
They got special permission to do a lot of stuff in Colorado they usually can't do in unified rules.
Yeah.
So also wouldn't surprise me to have it be in a ring, possibly. But who knows? We'll talk about that next week.
Later.
Moving on, let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, let's talk about this.
Murgali.
Oh, you're so excited every time. We know Murgali's shoulder is fucked now.
Yeah.
Gonna require surgery, which sucks. That takes Murgali out for a while.
People are going off on him left and right. Is the most hilarious. Like he posts something about like his vacation, and people are just going in on him on his posts. I mean, if you're going to talk a bunch of shit, then you have to get used to having a bunch of shit thrown back at you.
I'm curious now where we see Pixley go from here, because this is an enormous win for Pixley, and he looked good in the tournament. He's a guy that we've known has good wrestling. He's a guy that has a good sub game. I am curious to see him kind of launched in a bigger way into the super fight scene, and hopefully see a lot more of him, because he is weirdly, I think, gonna trouble a lot of guys, kind of like he did in trials.
Yeah. Because you can't out wrestle him.
Yeah, but I think it was funny that the Lovato strategy of like, I'm just gonna sit in front of you and make you pass my guard, like that is still an area of weakness in his game that I think a lot of other top guys will try to exploit. But again, the Patago camp seems to be pretty good at fixing problems.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the few camps that seems to have like Heath is in there with the guys and recognizing, hey, this is the problem you're having. Let's actually work to change your game and make improvements and make fixes. Whereas a lot of camps sort of just iron sharpens iron and keep refining the things you're already good at. His camp seems really good at like, oh, cool, this is a problem, and we're going to game plan and fix and like work on improving this thing and teach you some new tricks. So that's kind of why I'm really excited to see where he goes from here, because this is an enormous win. And watching it, like, Grady Uchimata, it's a post. The arm clearly gets taken out and, like, gets torn at the post, and then he gets darsed. But it's a huge win for Pixley, and I'm really excited to see where he goes from here.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm super excited to see, or was super surprising to me, was how good Joseph Chen looked against Hulk.
Yeah.
Until Hulk decided, like, I gotta win. Holy shit.
Allegedly on the way here, I listened to the
Supplement.
Yeah. And they were talking about Joseph Chen, and they said what he did in the very end of that match was he knew he was gonna win. So he pulled guard, and he was just going to maintain guard in front of him so that he didn't have to...
Tactically, it's a good decision.
So that he didn't, like, the end of the match, like, he just had to maintain guard, and he was going to win. And
he was up 2 rounds, clearly.
Yeah, and that was when Hulk just jumped the freaking calf slicer on him. Or what was it?
A compression lock is what I called it. A knee splitter.
The knee splitter.
Is it really like so this is a semantic argument that we got into internally with our friends and family at ADCC and CJI.
What was was it semantics? Was that the word of the weekend?
Semantics, yeah.
The word of the weekend is semantics.
A calf slicer attacks the calf muscle. A knee splitter or a compression lock attacks the joint and the ligaments of the knee. Yeah. They have different mechanisms of attack, and apparently I am the only person on our team that cares about this difference. But he blows his knee out. Yeah. Do you know what the injury is as well?
No.
For Chen?
We know it's a knee. We saw him kind of hobbling.
And like wrapped up, and like he was, and I think I got 3 different texts at ADCC when people saw him walking around, like, have you seen his knee? And I was like, yes, I can see him walking around and like very like gingerly like hobbling around. Again, he's super young. He's like 19. I really hope this isn't like a long-term injury for him. Probably it is a lifetime injury, but I hope he gets it fixed and healed, because the way that he was dealing with Hulk is something that we don't see Hulk like. We don't see guys do that to Hulk. And we kind of had some questions going into this event of like, okay, where's Hulk at? What's he going to look like? How's he going? You know, he's kind of focused on MMA. He's opened up his own gym. Like, we didn't kind of know where Hulk was. He pulled out of BJJ Stars. He had an injury going into this. It's like, there's a lot of X factors. Much like any big tournament, there's always going to be X factors here. But with how good he looked against Tyrotolo, like what, 2 weeks before this in one championship, and then in the first round of the tournament, and then in this matchup with Hulk, it does suck to see him get injured, but I'm super excited to see like how he continues to develop wherever he ends up, because he's at B team. He's, you know, Chen is really a guy that floats all around the world to various camps, and that seems to be something that works amazingly well for him. And I hope that we continue to see like his level of development keep skyrocketing up, because dude, he is already a problem for everyone, and he's 19.
Yeah. And it won't keep him down very long, I'm sure. I'm sure it's not going to be a problem. He hasn't said anything about it, but that doesn't surprise me either.
Mm-hmm. Next one we have that I kind of want to talk about a little bit was Andrew Tackett versus Nicky Ryan. This is another match that was just sort of one-way traffic.
Yeah.
All the way to the end. It was Andrew Tackett being the dark horse that everyone knew he would. I mean, not really as much of a dark horse anymore. Like, the front runner of like, this guy's going to be a problem for everyone. Just running over Nicky Ryan and kind of the first round tiring him out, and then rounds 2 and 3 just maintaining pressure, top position, movement, just working through all of the phases, and not really giving Nicky Ryan a lot of opportunity to do much of anything. And now we know after the fact that Nicky Ryan had like an injury that where him and Craig were rolling, he blows his knee out for like the third or fourth time.
Or something, yeah.
He couldn't walk for like 10 weeks before, something like some huge amount of time he was out.
I believe it, but I don't know how. Because I did a seminar with him during that time period, and I don't remember him being that
immobilized.
Yeah, at all. But maybe.
Oh yeah, that was the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah, but maybe I'm wrong, and who knows? And maybe you have an ability to act like it's not happening. If
making you ready in seminars.
Yeah.
Andrew Tackett is absolutely going to be a champion in something in the next like 3 years.
Yeah.
Like I think the sky is the limit for that guy. He's 19.
Well, but he also has a back injury. Remember?
Yeah,
he has the back problem that keeps on coming up.
Yeah,
time and
that's
time
another
again.
thing. He's like he seems to be kind of like managing that a lot better recently. And like I had the Some Band podcast, one of the early ones, they had his PT on there, and they talked about like all the strength training changes they made and all like the things they were doing at Brazilian Fight Factory with a lot of those guys to mitigate some of those injuries on a more long-term basis. And like it was really nice to see that they had a guy in-house that was like, or not in-house, but like a guy they were going to that was looking long-term at their career, not just trying to like fix them and move on. Like actually like, no, these are what you're going to have to do to maintain so you can strengthen this and not continue to injure it. I hope that is the case. But on the opposite end of that, we have Nicky Ryan. We talked about it a little bit in the earlier piece of the show. Some guys' bodies just aren't built for combat sports. Like I'm one of those guys. Like I've got a back surgery. I've got knees that are bad. I've a third of one labrum in one arm left. Partial rotator cuff. Like I'm not built for the sport. Nicky Ryan might be another one of those guys that's kind of like super technical, phenomenal, like knowledge base, and in the room he's great, but just maybe his body can't hold up to those camps or something else is going on, kind of like the sicknesses his brother has, where like getting to this top level or keeping his body in that kind of shape just breaks him down too much, and he ends up with these like career-ending injuries. You know, he seems like he's a phenomenal coach. Maybe he moves into that role, and that's online. People were talking about this match, and like that was sort of one of the things that was in the forefront of like, man, he's injured again. I hope that he heals up, but it is kind of a question of like how much. He doesn't also seem to like competing at all either. Like he doesn't like to compete, and so it's a kind of question of like how much longer is he going to compete? Yeah, he's been competing for
Or
15
just-
years almost.
Or just make him do, or you do one-off tournaments.
Yeah.
You do
Or a
who's
super
number-
fight or something.
Yeah, you do super fights here
Yeah.
and there. You don't do something like this. That is a multi-fight, like long
Preparation
you
in
know.
camp. Yeah.
Yeah,
And this, we've seen Nicky Ryan, like, he'll do 1 or 2 super fights a year, and he's done that since he was 13.
yeah.
Um,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
no, he's fun to watch. He's a phenomenal technician. I love seeing his runs at, like, the trials we've seen him in, and, it's great, but especially in stuff like this, with if you can't get your body to the tournament that you're getting in trials or you're coming into in top shape, like, you're going to run into guys like Andrew Tackett that can, and, like, you're going to run into guys like Joseph Chen that can, and, like, that bodies aren't as broken down. They still have injuries here and there, but can make that push through. And again, I feel for the guy. As a guy that's been historically injured for most of my training, it sucks to see, and it kind of sucks to see, like, certain guys' careers kind of have that little asterisk of, like, yeah, man, just couldn't keep his body healthy enough long enough to be able to make a real push into it. So let's talk about the next one. PJ Barch. I love using this in my notes. Uno reverse card.
Yeah.
I use it whenever you have something like earlier in a match. Like the great example is Luke Griffith versus Felipe Pena.
Yeah.
Luke Griffith early, boom, back take on Pena, looking for the choke, and then later, boom, Pena gets back take, chokes, and finishes. That's an Uno reverse card. This was PJ Barch being up by, like, what, 2 points, I think, on a takedown or something?
Like that, yeah.
Going into the final, like, 20 seconds of the match, and Elijah Dorsey's down. And he goes, okay, I'm going to try to rip PJ Barch's leg off.
Yeah.
And he dives into a heel hook, or like a toe hold or something, or some kind of...
I thought it was a heel hook, but it could have been like a straight ankle.
Yeah,
a heel
he
hook.
dives into some leg. And then PJ Barch, I've watched it a couple of times now, just bad. Just kind of looks up and goes, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then just launches into a
Yeah.
topside counter heel hook, like the Junie lock, essentially, where you don't have the bottom leg controlled, but you can just rip so hard at it.
It's kind of one of those, like, he left his foot on my chest.
Yeah.
Okay, I will take his foot now.
And you have 15 or 18 seconds left. It's like,
Yeah.
that's the time if you're going to be lazy and sloppy with a foot lock because you're going for your own foot lock.
He kind of held on to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like a little bit.
And the replay was like, ooh, that was like an extra second there.
It's one of those that you look at, you're like, oh,
It looked like a little animosity there
Yeah.
for something. But it was just...
that was that guy, that random guy on BJJ Stars did the same. Was it BJJ Stars? It was one of the events. Dude held on to something a little long.
Was it Mika?
No,
Was it-
it was somebody who the competitor Brazilian tapped, and after he Brazilian tapped,
Oh, yeah, he
dude just had the heel hook,
Who
and they
was that?
restarted him in a heel hook, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna take this shit
And
now."
he just like ripped
ripped
like,
it.
hell, yeah, I remember that.
Oh, it was somebody.
But it was,
Okay, anyway.
Barch kind of got his best finish at ADCC as a result of that, because it was a third place match, I think, because Wagner had just taken out Dorsey, and I forget who took out Barch, but it's just a badass picture of, like, Dorsey on his heel, and Barch just looking up like, nah, go for it, and just rips through and finishes this really unique heel hook. It's not, again, the uncontrolled outside leg on the heel hook.
Barch lost that kind of crappy decision against Micah, where it could have went.
Oh, yeah,
could have went
yeah.
either way.
Yeah, we were in the stands kind of talking about, like, oh, it was close.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it was just a neat
Yeah.
it was a neat finish, and I love a counter finish whenever, like, the first guy goes for the leg and the top guy goes, I can do that too, and then finishes. Like, there's just something cool about like an I have the bigger gun matchup like that, where a guy just goes, cool, pound for pound, and just goes back and does it. So Barch has been a guy that we've known is great for a long, long time. It's awesome to see him finally get his best placement at ADCC, and really just, like, he gave a rash guard to a kid when the kid asked for it in a funny interaction. But it was a cool match, and I wanted to bring it up because if you haven't seen that finish, you don't necessarily need to control both ends of the knee line to get the sub.
If you rip it, no.
Hey, yeah. This is a heel hook that I also like a ton if people leave their foot out, because in the gym especially, like, you can pull hard enough and guys are like, okay, like, it's you generate a lot of pressure into the leg without necessarily needing to control the other side of it, and don't get lazy with your feet. So it's cool to see it crop up at the ADCC World Championships. Let's see. What else do we have? We have a lot of notes from last week, which is, like, the return of the older guys, return of Lovato, return of Wagner, return of Cyborg, all of them getting placements, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Considering they're all in their 40s. Like, this is the first time we've had a bunch of guys in their 40s show up to ADCC and we're like, oh, I can contend.
We also have some under medicine,
We do have
helping those gentlemen through at this point.
Look, I wasn't upset to see it. Like,
No, I don't care.
ADCC doesn't test, and I'm like, I mean, we know that
Well, and
Cyborg and Wagner are both
and-
on some stuff.
And
because,
and none of them probably like care about the money. They care about the prestige
Yeah.
of the money. So like the new guys can go to CJI and make the money, and they can stay at ADCC for the prestige of the
which
event.
I kind of like. It was cool to see a lot of like the legends come back and have success at this tournament. It was like, yeah, like in the back of your head, you're like, well, maybe they're having success because some of the other guys in their divisions are out. But like in the moment, it was like, yeah, I don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
I'm getting to go watch a Lovato run, like in person. Like for me, a guy that I watched kind of coming up, but never actually got a chance to watch him live in person have one of those runs, because his runs were like 2007, and he would go to MMA. Like I missed a good portion of his big runs as a fan. It was really cool
Dude,
live
it's
in
really
person to see it.
bizarre for him to retire at the last one.
Yeah.
And then come back and almost win this
Get
one.
silver, retired, and then
Get silver.
But still, to this day, I'll say is the best reason for unretiring. He's like, look, man, I say it every time we talk about his retirement.
Yeah.
He goes, I am in the room putting as much work as I have ever put into all the other guys in my camp, like Victor Hugo, Felipe Costa, like all those guys' camps. I'm in there training like I'm in there with them. If I am willing and going to put my body through and do as much work as I'm doing, well, then I'll still compete. Like I'm already doing it like I'm competing in, because I'm giving everything I can for these guys. Might as well keep doing it. I'm like, Lovato, I respect that.
Yeah,
like if you're going to go put it on the line and then show up like this, like I'll watch Lovato till he's 40. Actually, how old is he now? I was going to say till he's 45, but that's only one more ADCC.
Yeah.
If he looks like this, man.
Because I think he's like a year or two younger than me. So he's in his early 40s.
Yeah. Dude, if he looks this good in 2 years, like he's had a rough couple of runs, but man, maybe he's got, he's got the good shit figured out, and I'll keep watching, man.
And the dad strength is coming.
Yeah. Same thing with Cyborg. Like almost he won.
Yeah, but no dad strength with Cyborg.
No,
that
but
we're aware of.
Cyborg won that we're aware of. Cyborg won the absolute for ADCC in 2013.
Yeah.
And then almost did it again a decade later in 2024. Like that's crazy. Because remember, like if you go back and look at the Wikipedia article, you can see that like Cyborg went against, I think it was Galvao.
Yeah.
Was it Galvao? Was it Lister? I forget. Cyborg was in the super fight, and the only reason back then, sometimes not. The super fight is when you win the absolute, you then go against the previous year's absolute champion there, and Cyborg is in one of those, and it's like, oh yeah, because he won. Like we have the same thing with Kusumar Paharis is in there, Dean Lister's in there. Like there's a whole list of guys, and sometimes they had to pull people in that fell out.
What, you want to see who he won against in
2013? No, it would have been 15. So who did he go against in 15?
13.
He was in
2013, Beijing, China. He won absolute.
He won the absolute. I'm sorry, but in 2015, he would have been in the super fight. I forget who was in the super fight against.
No, 2013. He didn't medal.
Yeah. So I'm saying in 2013 he wins the absolute. And then in 2015, he would not be in the tournament. He would be only in the super fight.
Oh, okay.
So in 2015, I forget. I think it's Andre, but I don't remember, because I think it would have been Andre. Would have been.
I'm looking.
And then who did Andre go against in 17?
Andre Galvao.
Yeah.
Versus Cyborg.
2015.
Yeah.
Okay. So who did Andre go against in 2017? In Finland.
I don't know. That was before my time.
Yeah. Regardless, but it would have been cool to see Cyborg like do it again 10 years later.
Not completely before my time, but my knowledge time.
But he got guillotined by Kynan in the finals, as he did in the division.
Let's talk about Kynan. He likes to post on people's necks.
He does.
He did this more, I think, in this tournament than I've ever seen him do it before.
Oh, absolutely.
He was posting on everybody's neck, and he goes against Pato. He was a little gentleman.
Pato's a 66er, and Kynan was under 99.
We were joking around because we were watching the match. He was literally taking Pato's head and pushing his head into his knee and like slamming his head with his knee and then grabbing his neck. And I was like, holy shit, he's beating the shit out of Pato over there.
Kind of know, but
and
Pato,
I mean, he's doing it for the whole match. And then he's like spreading his legs, and it's just
he's like opening his guard, and you're like, and Pato was just there.
God.
I'm like, man, Pato was a gangster for like. Not
honestly,
that was some
for
rough not being willing to just let your guard
go. Whoa,
like, man. But yeah, kind of like they didn't seem to have beef, but it was but it was like on that line of like is kind of mad at him for some reason.
I think at any time you take my head and you shove it into your knee like that, and he wasn't just doing it like once, he was doing it like over and over and over. Like
he was doing it to like let me just press your guard. That's what it felt like. It felt like he was just like just let me press your guard.
It was something. It was something to watch.
And then he beats him, but it was still like, it got a little weird there for a second.
It was
just like, why is
it was getting a little violent.
Why is Kynan mad at Pato?
Kynan was a more violent Kynan than I've ever seen before.
What it probably was is he thought back to Absolute 2019 and went, I'm not going out like Lachlan again.
Yeah.
I'm not getting Lachlan again.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got a guy who's at 66. Lachlan was at 77. He's a known leg locker. I am absolutely not letting him rip my heel off again in dynamic fashion like he did and take another Absolute from me because of this.
He was super violent this time.
It looked like a little PTSD in there is what it seriously looked like. I forgot about that moment of just because remember, all of us in the stands are watching, and it's our entire Grappling Rewind group looking at it, kind of looking at each other like, well, that kind of looks a little weird. If you look at the optics of that, don't look good.
Yeah, I mean, I in the gi, you can grab the collars and kind of pull your knee into their head or their face but like he was just like gripping behind his head and like pulling it into his knee. I was like, oh man,
this is weird.
Like you're gonna,
but
I don't know what you're trying to do,
but Kynan wins, and that's kind of what we all expected. I am very curious to see if we will actually get the 2026 match with him and Gordon Ryan, which would be a rematch of, I think, Nogi Pans or Nogi Worlds, I think, from 2018, where Gordon had to get a come-from-behind points-wise victory over Kynan. He eventually finished Kynan with rear naked choke. Like 20 seconds left at the end of the match. It was really, really close. But it'd be really cool to see that match again if Gordon's healthy. If Gordon looks like he did this weekend, I really have an interest in seeing the match. If we see a healthy Gordon, it's actually a really interesting match because potentially we're going to see Gordon go back into the legs.
Jesus, how old's Kynan?
24.
26.
Okay, thank God. At least he's older than I thought he was.
Wow.
Yeah, because I interviewed him in 2019, so he'd be like 21 there. So
it's like, wow.
Yep. Let's see what else we have. We have some other cool moments as well, and I don't really have a whole lot left this week. Owen Jones' fast win over Garnberg. We talked about that last week. That was super exciting. Really, really neat leg lock entry that he made. I think it's curious because the B team guys posted a picture of I'm going to call him Garnberg, training at B team.
Yeah.
I'm curious if him and Owen were in the same room at the same time.
I believe they were.
Okay, that's a really
because there's a picture. So the one picture I saw was a picture of Dorian. Because they were
because Dorian got moved over to New Wave because of the drama there.
And so it was kind of like a shots fired kind of thing because it was a picture of Dorian and Garbeck.
I remember that.
And then beside it was a picture of Garbeck and Owen.
Yeah.
And it was,
which is really funny. You have a fourth of the division at your, or more than a fourth of it, because Ethan was there and then other guys dropped in. Like you have, that's wild that you have almost a fourth of a division at ADCC. It was like that was probably the room for 66ers.
But I don't think they were kind of in and out. Not all of them were there all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were more like in and out as opposed to the guys that were there all the time.
Like Ethan was there the whole time. Yeah. Let's see. So that was fun. Owen Jones has a really neat armbar over Gabriel Souza in the first round, which I think a big upset because Gabriel Souza has been looking really good. And again, whenever you have your European trials champions, like they always get seeded really poorly, but they usually do pretty well.
Especially he was a purple when he won.
Oh yeah, he was a purple belt.
He's a brown now, but he was a purple when he won against a seasoned black belt.
Against Ash and against Sam McNally. Like, he looked really good. And then to come against, and he also beat Dominic Mejia as well, who's the North American trials runner-up.
Yeah.
Which you always kind of wonder, like, okay, how's he going to look against the top of the heap? And then he armbars Gabriel Souza, and we're like, right, he's really, really good, apparently. Good to know. Really impressive, like, outstretched armbar that looked really cool early in the match. It was cool to have younger talent from the UK coming up and really showing in this tournament, with 2 big subs in the first day. Next match, we had another cool armbar, which is Polish Mateus, your favorite.
Yeah.
And it was Mateusz Szczynski.
And it was a great armbar.
With an armbar win over Gary Tonin it was like a backside armbar where he trapped Gary Tonin's arm in the armpit grip on the other side as he inverted.
Yeah. Because he went into K, and when he went into K,
Tonin had like a post underneath his armpit.
He posted on his hip.
Yeah.
Instead of the leg, instead of holding the legs or shifting your hands or switching sides, he left his hand there and he just grabbed it and freaking rolled over. Which is
weird, like the thing you're kind of supposed to do and taught to do a lot of times. But most people can't invert under you and trap the arm like that. And it was just, again, a really, really nice, neat submission.
Well, I mean, it's probably one of those things where he realized he wasn't going to get into the legs, so he had to kind of go, top side, low side kind of, or switch it up, because he knew he wasn't going to get anywhere otherwise.
Because we thought the first half of this match was Mateus looking for the legs and Gary Tonin going, I have one of the best leg lock defenses in the world.
Yeah.
Good luck. And Mateus not really being able to make a ton of hay. He kind of moved Tonin a little bit around, but like it was very clear that Gary Tonin was like, yeah, man, I'll play this with you, but again, I'm one of the best defensive leg lockers in the world. And I think that was kind of cool to see. We've seen Tonin kind of get blown out the last 2 ADCCs, but it is cool to see when you kind of push him back into that realm to go, oh man, he actually is a phenomenally talented grappler into the legs if you can put him there, like on your own volition and not get killed by him. That was kind of cool. And then Mateus goes, yeah, man, I'm dangerous in a bunch of different areas, and finishes the armbar. We talked about Micah and PJ being a super close match. You kind of thought, I think you lean more PJ on this.
I did, but
I think I leaned a little more Micah, but it was one of those where if you coin flip, again, I actually haven't had a chance to rewatch the match. It was a very close match. It kind of speaks to the level that PJ's on. I'm happy that we got this rematch at ADCC because PJ Barch didn't get flash knocked out directly before.
Yeah.
It does kind of make me want to see both these guys again against Andrew Tackett.
Yeah.
Because if this was a close match, and styles make fights, and Andrew Tackett was as dominating as he was over PJ Barch in their match of who's number one, I'm really curious what he's going to look like versus Mika, and I'm really curious what Mika's going to look like versus Kate, because those are, I think, 2 of the matches that I want to see, and those are kind of at the end of the show here, but we're getting close to there. Those are the things that I want to see. Those are the 2 matches that I really want to see Mika in before, like, in the next year. Like, those are the matches to make if you are any promoter. Like, one championship should put him in there. We had Ryan Aiken with a first round ankle lock over Pedro Mourinho, kind of an upset.
Yeah.
Pedro Mourinho is ankle lockable, but Ryan Aiken, we probably know him from EBI and CJI.
Yeah.
Like combat jiu-jitsu. He's looked good, but being able to ankle lock Pedro Mourinho who is I think a pretty decent favorite because of his really, really dominant performance over Giancarlo Bodoni on Who's Number One recently. He's looked, really, really good on the Who's Number One circuit. So for Aiken to be able to like just get into the legs and ankle lock him, I think really significantly moves up his stock. Also, let's talk about stock movements. Dorian Oliveras, he put the craziest pace we have ever seen anyone put.
He put a wrestler, like a kid wrestling pace.
That's on Garbeck in the first round.
That's the only way I can explain that.
And then Garbeck kind of weathered it.
Garbeck just needed to control him. And really, in all honesty, it was a control thing because Dorian moves a lot. He has a lot of like in and out. He changes his, he goes from like mid range to close range. And he's really good at that, but he doesn't really hold on to you at any point.
Yeah.
Like he knows how to kind of dart in, dart out. He can get his points, but other than like jumping on your back, he doesn't really have a lot.
He's a little bit limited. He's young. Like you can tell he's like a 16 or 17-year-old because like in coming out of a wrestling background, you can see that in this match. And then Garbeck goes, cool, I've kind of felt the pace, and then at one opportunity, like Dorian overextends himself a little bit, and Garbek goes, "Cool, back take."
Yeah.
And then that's the match.
Yeah.
He gets points in it, right? It's not a choke win.
No, I think he chokes him.
Okay.
I think he does.
I don't
could be wrong.
Remember
with that,
exactly, but again, it's Garbek takes it. But it was just a really interesting, like, yeah, it to me it just looked like, yep, young grappler in a world championship level event makes a small mistake that a guy at that level can capitalize on.
Yeah.
And again, we know Garbek's good from his trials run. We remember talking about his trials run, his Asian Oceanic trials win, where he looked really good in that one. And it just shows
points. You were right.
It was 2 points, right?
Yeah, 3.
3 point back take.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, I'm still very curious to see now that Dorian's at New Wave.
And it's Gerberg.
Gerberg?
Yeah.
I have a K in there.
It's Gerbeg.
Ivanov.
Yeah.
My bad.
We kind of combined his two names.
Yeah,
together.
I spelled his name wrong at the beginning of our notes here, and then I've just carried it on over and over again.
You know who we're talking about.
My bad. Sorry, European guys. Take another L. What are we, 7-8 years on this show of me
we try.
butchering European names. We have Polaris next week for me to butcher. So that was fun, but I am still super hot on Dorian Alvarez. As long as like it seems like his training situation can be stable and not kind of be as interfered with. But I think at New Wave that probably won't be as much of a problem, just given the figureheads in that room.
Unless
it's a complete problem. He can't be there.
Yeah, unless his father doesn't get along with the coaches.
And that's
a
possibility.
Which I think is going to be a possibility.
Which what we saw at B team happens again. Yeah. It could be there. And then we have Pato's ankle lock over Owen Jones, kind of ending Owen Jones's run, but still like just shows you how good of an ankle locker Pato is. Because you have Owen Jones submitting these guys, and then you have Pato coming in and going, "Bop, I'm like the best ankle locker in this tournament." But aside from like Mateusz Szczecinski, probably.
And then we've Felipe Costa.
Oh.
Kind of coming out of nowhere.
Makes me sad. Not coming out of nowhere. Like, I knew who he was.
You knew who he was.
Because we commentated a tournament. He was a brown belt that he won like $3,000.
But I mean, no one really expected him to take out Jacob Couch.
No.
And to last as long as he did throughout the tournament.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really expected that.
Costa looked really
Except
good.
for the six blade guys.
Except for the six blade guys.
That were in front of us.
Dude, one of my favorite pictures in jiu-jitsu. It's a picture of Lovato probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. And
it's him like this. And he's like grabbing Sanji's shoulder.
Yeah.
And the caption of is, find someone who looks at you like Sanji looks at, like Lovato looks at Sanji when Victor Hugo's in the finals.
Yeah.
And that whole team was just behind Felipe Costa being told. It was cool. It was really cool to see.
They were also
them.
a couple rows in front of us.
Yeah.
And they kept on screaming things in Portuguese that we didn't understand.
And then I'd scream as well. I'd scream jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Which by the end of the weekend, our whole team was not happy with me
jiu-jitsu. And that's my guy.
That's my guy. I had such a good time at the World Championships. Apologies to everyone around me that had to be there, but I had such a good time. I love screaming for jiu-jitsu in the crowd. But yeah, I screamed "That's my guy" a ton whenever Felipe Costa did something big. But it was sad to see him take out Jacob Couch because Couch is such a cool story. He has such a cool run up. Like, he's such a nice guy. We kind of know we spend a little more time with Couch than most of the athletes, just because he's like, I've got a chance to interview him like 4 or 6 times at this point. He will be back. I have no doubt that this will not stop him. He's pretty resilient. He's been around for a while, and he will continue to do that. But it did kind of speak to just how good Felipe Costa is to be able to kind of neutralize his Couch's game and then be able to take him out. That's really all I have.
Yep.
We have we're gonna do previews next week for Polaris and Mikey and Cade.
Yep.
And that's it. Miranda, you got anything fun going on this weekend?
I don't think so. I keep on screwing up my weekends. Like, I forget this is the last weekend of August before September starts.
Yeah,
for
Cade
whatever
and Mikey
reason.
kind of snuck up on us.
Well, and I keep on thinking that, I don't know why I think we're in September when we're not in September. So, but anyway, yeah.
Right.
No, a holiday weekend. Yay. That's about the extent of it.
Well, as always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Miranda.
We have the Grappling Rants, and that what it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.